Hello everyone, my name is Paul and welcome back to the new news. I hope that everyone is having a great day. I hope that your friends and family and yourself, of course, are safe in this hour. And I hope that you guys are, happy we made it to the weekend. It's Friday. There's a lot of stuff going on, obviously. We had a little bit less help today from the researchers. That's fine. Everyone needs a day off, and a lot of the volunteers right now are going through some stuff. So, but I still, they are still the ones that are making this thing happen. And I can't appreciate them enough. So I really appreciate them. And please make sure to give them a warm shout out. And, of course, play nice on the Discord if you're a member of that community. But there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of big announcements that happened today. And it's pretty difficult to kind of go through a lot of these, but there's just so much stuff coming out, so many big statements, decisions, both in conflict and domestic and politically. So we're gonna go through this as best we can, and but a lot of this stuff affects a ton of people. It really does. And we're talking about everything from conflicts to we're talking about natural disasters and famine and drought. And luckily, you guys have made this an awesome community that we can be the news that gives back. We truly can give back to the very issues that we talk about on this channel. And the way that we do that is because in the video description, there is a ton of different things that you can go and donate to. And we're always looking for more. So please go check out the links in the description. We vetted those. We made sure that, one, they're good organizations. They are official organizations you can donate to, you can safely donate to. You can look these up and vet them for yourselves. If you still don't believe us, that is fine. And then, of course, 80% or more of the proceeds for all of these organizations, according to their financial history, goes directly to their programs. It does not go to the salaries or otherwise. So both according to independent reports and their own financial reports and tax statements. So that's kind of what we're looking for in these organizations, and we would love to see more. So if you guys have any, please join us on our Discord and let a staff member know, myself included, if you have that, if you have any other organizations we could donate to, regardless of whether or not they're in a country that we may already have or a region that we may already have. We're always looking for more. We just want to help people. That's the whole thing of this. That's the whole theme of the project. We're never doing super chats on this channel. We're never merchandising on this channel. It's all about helping people. So please, if you can't give a whole lot to this, to those organizations, give a little. And if you can't give anything at all, give us a like, subscribe, and tell your friends about us, because that helps us grow. And the more we grow, obviously, the more help we can give to these people, and the more people, honestly, at this point, we could truly save throughout the world. We've talked a lot about this kind of an issue, and that's really what I want to do with this channel and what the staff wants to do. So I hope that you guys will continue to support us in that endeavor. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and dive right into the news here. And we start off with our special report here in Ukraine. And the first thing we have is actually from the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence Ministry. And this is posted from their official Twitter, and they said that Russia... They claim that they have discovered plans of Russia using GRU forces to disguise as civilians to purposely destroy residential apartments in the Belarusian city of Mazir in order to bring Belarus into the war with Ukraine. So this is reportedly, right? So we have to say, we can't verify this. I don't have the reports. I'm not an intelligence official in Ukraine. I don't know what's going on. So I have to rely on what they say. And does it sound far-fetched? Yes. Is it plausible, though? Yes. And so you can't really rule anything out. Keep in mind, there is a really big information war going on between the country of Ukraine and Russia and Belarus and NATO countries, EU countries. Everyone is in an information war in one capacity or another. You have to be cognizant of that when you're going through and researching, even whether you're doing, an amateur news stream like we do here on this channel, though I would like to think it's better than a lot of others that are professional. But, even professional organizations, you have to be cognizant of the fact that there is information war ongoing, and this could include misinformation, and both sides are contributing to that. Like it or not, no matter how much we want to support Ukraine, you have to understand not all of it is necessarily, they're trying to garner support for their cause. They have a lot of support for their cause. That's not a problem. In all, the cause is just. We've plainly stated we have a bias for Ukraine, even though we try to stay unbiased on these issues. So this is coming, once again, directly from the Defense Intelligence Ministry. This is their official Twitter. And the Kremlin plans to blow up apartment buildings in Mazir to involve Belarus in the war against Ukraine. For this purpose, sabotage groups arrived in the city of Mazir under the guise of civilians. And we can see this also coming from their official website. So if you want to take a look here. And this is the official website for the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. And this is where they're saying, they're self-proclaimed president of Belarus, for formal reason. It gives them a formal reason to start the war with Ukraine. So officers of the Belarusian army began to evacuate their families from Mazir, reportedly. So this isn't uncommon. Like, this isn't, I shouldn't say this isn't uncommon. This isn't unheard of. In fact, they even cite it here. That Russia used this during the as the scenario, very similarly anyway, within Chechnya. So pretty, that's some evidence to that lends credibility to this. So, can we wholeheartedly believe it? I don't know, and I really can't answer that. But is it something that's plausible? Yes. And so in my personal opinion, if I were, in a viewer's shoes and I'm reading stuff like that, do walk away with a grain of salt with all of these issues, because there's more than what meets the eye. Perception, well, for a lot of things, perception may be reality. When you're talking about large political and information wars, it's just, perception is not reality. There's so much stuff happening behind closed doors that we're never going to know about for many, many reasons. And we get it immediately into tonight's main news, and that's because Severodonetsk has fallen. The night goes on right now in Ukraine, and Severodonetsk, as the city, has fallen to Russian forces. Ukrainian forces are on the retreat. And they're retreating to better defensible positions, is what they're saying. Here's the thing. They're battered, but I wouldn't say they're broken. And you see this very vividly. We'll just take a look at this. This is a photo taken of the Ukrainian retreat. And this picture should tell you a lot of things. This thing should be put up for one of the greatest photos of history, of our generation. This photo right here is probably one of the most important photos of our generation. This photo shows you, look at the emotions going on here. Look at what this man had to go. I mean, just look at his face. Look at what these guys are about to go through. The Battle of Severodonetsk is absolutely bloody. Absolutely bloody and horrific. They have fought and fought and fought and fought and fought. They pushed back. They had a counterattack. That counterattack lost its momentum. Then they were pushed back again, and they just kept fighting until their command said, we're going to become encircled. We have to leave. And that's what happened. Severodonetsk and Lysychansk are both, I know Severodonetsk has fallen. I've also heard reports that Lysychansk has also fallen to the Russians. I cannot confirm that. And so, as a result, we've only moved the line regarding Severodonetsk. But the Luhansk region is being pressured under 9 separate axes of advance. The bulk of Russian forces operating in the Donbass have all been focused around taking the Luhansk region. And these guys are getting absolutely hammered. The Ukrainian forces are getting absolutely hammered. And they're putting up a very resilient fight to it, but it's the Russian horde. and they just keep pouring more and more in there. And they blew up all 3 of the main bridges across the SEVERODONETSK River, which means that they can't really resupply their forces. They can't really, they can't really get their wounded out, their dead out. They can't get more ammunition in there, really, in a large enough quantity to make that difference in the fight. And while they were doing that with boats that they were pulling across the river with ropes, it's just not enough. You need better logistics to do that, and it just wasn't there. And so, in order to avoid becoming encircled, Ukrainian forces have retreated to better defensible positions, at least according to what we're hearing. And that photo is by Johanna Maria Fritz. This is a photo taken of retreating Ukrainian forces near SEVERODONETSK. And so, as we drop down here into Lysychansk, though, we see that mass graves are in use. So, Lysychansk has been pretty much under steady bombardment for some time now. And it's only increased during the Battle of SEVERODONETSK as Russian forces began to shift their artillery fires as they were pushing in too close to Ukrainian positions to use artillery effectively. They shifted it on to the next major targets. Lysychansk, which is the next major city, is right across the river, the SEVERODONETSK River. And there is a massive amount of casualties, over 300, in fact. And this is the photo coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Ukraine. This is the mass grave or one of the mass graves, I should say, over in Lysychansk. The number of people who have died in this war and had to be buried in mass graves is almost incomprehensible to the human mind. We don't know casualties, really. It will be a very long time before we do, if we ever do. Even the casualties for the Soviet Union during World War II are still hotly debated. Officially, Russia has claimed 27 million dead as a result of what they would call their Great Patriotic War or World War II. That number, it could be as high as 80 million. It's actually just not known. And that's the high-end estimate. So that's kind of what we're looking at here is we could never truly know what the cost is of this war, which is a very scary thought. We will have a general idea at some point, but truly the losses are absolutely substantial, especially amongst civilians. A lot of the estimates you're seeing, especially from the UN, they are very conservative in their numbers. They keep it very low end, and those are running around 10,000 at this point killed. So it's a pretty significant number of fatalities amongst just the civilian population, let alone the actual combatants within this. And also here within the Luhansk region, this is coming from the Ministry of Internal Affairs from Ukraine. Who can you really call for help when you are the help? And that's the situation that a fire and rescue team here in the Luhansk region found themselves in when they were hit by rockets, Russian rockets landing within the region. We can take a look. So, reportedly, 4 of them were injured. We do not know of any fatalities. Now, this wouldn't be the first. So, I don't know if this was, purposeful or not that they hit this. They hit the station with rockets. However, I wouldn't question it if it was. Russia has shown that it is very willing to target first responders specifically in order to prevent aid to be delivered to individuals. We've seen this in 2 major occasions. So the first time that the closest representation is from this war during the shelling of Kharkiv by BM-21 Grad systems. We actually had videos here on the channel of this occurring. The BM-21s would fire their salvos and then those salvos would land. They would injure civilians and wound them and kill them in the street. And then they delayed the second salvo long past any adjustment period because they wouldn't make any adjustments to begin with. This would allow first responders to actually go out and start helping the wounded, tending to them and exposing themselves, thinking, hey, the rockets are over. And that's when the second set of rockets would be coming in and landing on that very same fire position, that's the very same grid marker. And it would wound and kill first responders in the line of duty attempting to provide life-saving efforts to civilians who were just hit. So that happened in Kharkiv. We actually have a video of it if you want to go back. There's a video of it here on the channel that we aired. But this is also very well documented during the conflict in Syria, where Russian forces did this in areas such as Aleppo and areas south of the Middle Euphrates River Valley, Idlib as well, where Russian forces had pretty much free control to do that, along with the Syrian regime, which is under al-Assad. And so it's very well documented. It's a tactic for Russia to target first responders, which is in fact a war crime, because those are medical personnel. They are protected under the Geneva Convention. As we go down here, though, there is a little bit of good news coming out, and that's because the HIMARS were put immediately to work. The M124 HIMARS system, which Ukraine actually received yesterday, has already been put into action, and we can see that here. This is the video that has been released. These are the HIMARS firing on Russian positions from somewhere in the Donbass. I'm sorry, but these things are cool. Actually, the HIMARS are where I was at in Syria. That's actually what was there. Was HIMARS systems, and so I actually have videos of from when they were launching them against the Islamic State while I was there. And they're just they're cool and they are really powerful. When these things go off, you can't really get it from the video. When these things go off, you feel it. You feel it in your chest. The concussion from these things just launching, the overpressure from the launch alone is insane, and they're extremely accurate. They're stupidly accurate. I mean, these things can put around, I think, within like 100 meters of its target or less. Sorry, not 100 meters, 10 meters of its target or less. Something ridiculous. It's gonna land basically right next to you. And these things have pretty large payloads too. They are precision guided munitions, and so that really puts Ukraine in a pretty favorable advantage there when it comes to their systems. They're also a lot longer range than most MLRS systems employed by the Russian Federation, which means that they're going to be very difficult to hit unless you're using aerial targets or drone systems. So that's going to be pretty difficult. And we also know that the skies over Ukraine are still contested. That's not to say that Russia can't use its air assets and drone systems in order to target these things. It just means it's going to be a lot more difficult. Ukraine has shown very capable of shooting down Russian aircraft and drones that would be able to get into a position to actually conduct a meaningful strike on these. While I do have it up here by the border, these things are probably very far behind the lines, realistically. But that's fine because in response, Russia is bringing in its own heavy systems. This is over near Torres, and this is the S-300 battery on the move here in the Donbass, heading towards the Donetsk, kind of the Donetsk district within the Donetsk Oblast. And that's kind of what we're seeing here. So it's really a tit-for-tat kind of thing going on right here. and take a look. So this is a Russian S-300 battery. You can tell by the invasion markings, obviously. But this is one of their largest and most modern air defense systems that they have. These can carry nuclear payloads, but I doubt that they are going to be using them, considering it would mean the destruction of the Russian Federation should they do so. But these things are, these things can operate just like the HIMARS. They can operate against ground targets if need be, but they're better used as an anti-air weapon system, which is really what they're built for. It's an air defense system. So that's obviously shows they need something bigger and better. Now, why they are bringing them in this close to the front line is a mystery. It is likely to counter the HIMARS system, but the situation with that is, the issue with that is that the S-300 has a pretty astonishing range to it, and a lot of Russian artillery does have a pretty astonishing range to it, believe it or not, when you're talking about their HIMARS systems. They're more modern ones. But they bring them in extremely close to the front lines. The furthest one away I've seen, anyway, is Belgorod, which we know that Ukraine is capable of hitting as well, or at least they're capable of hitting themselves, as we showed on the stream yesterday. I know that there's a closer version of that same video that's been circulating around today, but that happened yesterday. We actually had that on the stream. So, they basically, their system decided it wanted to lose its lock and immediately did a U-turn, targeted their own battery, and destroyed it. But this is really close to the front lines. There's not really any reason for it. In fact, it probably puts their S-300s in really unnecessary danger. I could be wrong, of course. I'm no expert in the S-300 system, but it just, from my understanding with these systems, they're just moving them way too close to the front lines and exposing them, making them unnecessarily vulnerable for Russian forces. I'm not going to tell them to stop making that mistake, though. And we can see here that there are some birds of prey out and around. This is a Ukrainian Mi-24 Hind helicopter gunship. It's been operating on the pretty close to the front lines in support of Ukrainian ground forces within the Donbass. There is a massive amount of equipment being used in this war. We've seen pretty heavy usage of rotor wing air assets on the side of the Russian Federation, as well as their fixed wing aircraft. Reportedly, they lost a frogfoot today, actually, to ground fire. But the Mi-24 Hinds and the Mi-8 AMTSHs and other variants of helicopters that we've seen on the Ukrainian side and Ukrainian fighter jets, really outside of the very beginning of the war, we haven't seen a whole lot of use until about the last month or so. So pretty impressive to see these things flying so close to the front lines. Also, I would not recommend being on the wrong end of a Hind for anybody. These things are basically a flying tank. While we've seen their losses, these things, unless you're carrying a man pad and can actually get a lock onto this thing, these things are pretty terrifying. Take a look.
Наші вертушки працюють. Це є сила. Слава.
Once again, very low. I think this is really on the border between nap of the earth and contour flight. I'm no helicopter pilot, so if there are any pilots that could tell me, I'd be really interested to know. I have a lot of interest in flying, but I've never flown, or I've never actually flown an aircraft, and I don't know too many specifics. But this is really low flight. This is very low level flight for the aircraft, and this minimizes their exposure time, and that minimizes how their ability to be locked onto by enemy air defense systems, whether that's man pads or larger air defense systems, and it also means that they take less ground fire. Really, they just have to fly this low, not crash in the process, pop up, fire their rockets, which they usually do. They usually do in a high angle attack. That way it extends the range of the rockets and really just saturates an area rather than precision strikes and risking the aircraft itself. and they turn and burn, and they break away from contact and head back for refuel, rearm, refit. As we come over here to Poli, so also known as Pologi, this we've seen now Russian forces engaged, being engaged in an ambush. This is actually from the Russian perspective. I do not believe Ukrainian forces are this far south, at least according to the information that we have gotten from the front lines. We can't independently verify that Ukrainian forces are this far south at this point. That's totally possible. But this could also be the work of also just partisans. Partisans are very active within the occupied regions. We've seen pretty heavy, we've seen them assassinate, local government officials, Russian forces and security forces, occupational forces, really. And we've seen them, burning buildings down, destroying railroads, destroying communications networks. So pretty effective overall. And so it would not be unsurprising if there are, if this is a partisan activity, should this still be considered contested territory or occupied territory, rather. But let's just take a look. This is from the turret gunner's view.
Гранатометчик! Стой! Меня возьми, блядь! Блядь, ебашит, сука! Блядь, походу зацепили, пидорасы!
So that is the view of a turret gunner. Now, being a former turret gunner, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do. At least on this part. So the thing is that everyone, talks about, oh, I want to be a sniper or whatever. But the fact is, with most engagements, you just see guys just dumping rounds, and that's the thing. Are you trying to hit a target? Yeah, but rounds downrange are probably the best solution to any situation. And so what this is called is establishing fire superiority. That's why he's just laying down on this. He wants to gain that fire superiority. And that way they suppress the target. He's suppressing the enemy with that machine gun. It does make him a very big target. Your life expectancy as a machine gunner is like 7 seconds once you begin an engagement. But the thing is that he has to establish that fire superiority. He has to lay down on that trigger, because if he doesn't, and he doesn't suppress whoever's firing at them, that doesn't allow that the dismounts of that vehicle, like the guy who's out the back of the gas teaker, to close with the enemy, maneuver against them while they're suppressed, or start taking more precision fires. So that's why a lot of times you'll see really short belts wrapped around like a 240 or something. If you've ever seen photos of like Marines on patrol in Afghanistan, they'll have a really short, like 50 round belt wrapped around the 240. And what this is called a contact belt. So literally, you get into contact, you drop, you set up the gun on its bipods, and you literally unload the entire 50 round belt in one burst. You just spray. And what this does is establishes that fire superiority. You reload, you have a 100 round belt now. Enemy has been suppressed. Everyone else is opening up with their 3 round bursts on their M4s, M16s. And then and now you can actually start properly suppressing a target, also known as RTR, return fire, take cover, return accurate fire. But that is it for Inside of Ukraine. Not as much as I had hoped for. There was a lot of stuff going on regarding other topics today, which is unfortunately, that kind of clouds the news on a lot of things. And a lot of it was also stuff that came out yesterday that we had already aired, and it was just follow-ons to it and just, different vantage points and videos. So not a whole lot of big things right now, other than, obviously, a possibility for Belarus to join the war. Lysychansk, Severodonetsk has fallen. The HIMARS are in effect now, and S-300s are rolling up. And Lysychansk may have also fallen. I just cannot confirm that at this point in time. So pretty extensive stuff going on in Ukraine. Pretty big. Does this really change the battlefield at this point? Now, this is a pocket here. And realistically, Ukraine losing Luhansk, as much as I hate to say it, probably would do them more good to lose it right now than it would to keep it. Because right here, you can see they're encroaching. This is an attempt to encircle them within. I've heard even Russian media start reporting they've encircled 2,000 Ukrainian troops inside the pocket. I can't confirm that, and I haven't heard it from anywhere else other than like Taz. So there's just not enough evidence to support that the encirclement has occurred. But there is pretty significant gains towards that. There's a lot of fighting in Zolote. There's a lot of fighting elsewhere, and it's really putting. This is really an endangerment to a large, bulky Ukrainian forces that are embattled here. And Luhansk really doesn't have a whole lot left to lose before it's just taken over. So, in my humble opinion, very humble opinion on this, probably losing Luhansk and just taking the L on that and, putting your forces into a much better position where they're not being encircled anymore, where you could lose a big section of your army is probably not what I'd be doing. I would probably just take the L and just pull them back. And I think that's kind of the direction that Ukraine is going right now, because the situation, 9 axes of advance, is very difficult to defend against, no matter who you are. And that's just a lot of pressure that they can't focus on just one area. They have to focus on 9. And that doesn't make any of those 9 positions defensible or tenable, really. So with that, we go ahead and we start moving on into the international news. We have a couple of different things going on here. So the first thing we have is, of course, the Russian UN delegation has now begun criticizing the International Criminal Court. The same people that are going to be investigating this war, of course. And they also just tried to put a spy inside of it as an intern who would have access to the ICC's databases. So why are they criticizing the International Criminal Court? Well, they're criticizing the International Criminal Court because of the ICC engagement on Libya and Darfur. Specifically, this is the United Nations representative to the Security Council. So they have spent a lot of money. The ICC has, and they have spent a lot of money for really nothing. They haven't been able to make a ruling on Libya. So that's just the pretty much the bulk of it. Libya, a lot of it is about, putting a no-fly zone over Libya, bombing installations within Libya, all of that, most of which was U.S.-led, of course. And there's some controversy over it, and if that was even good to go. But that's kind of the situation that the ICC's finding itself in, and they're just not really ruling on anything at this point. So of course Russia is going to be criticizing them. Keep in mind, once again, the ICC is born out of the Hague and the events of World War II, specifically the Holocaust. So, and they are the very same organization that will be investigating Russia, and that will be a very, very long investigation. So do not expect, even if the war is to end tomorrow, and Ukraine has Crimea and everything else back, it wouldn't matter if the investigation would take months, if not years, probably just years. But not who I would. They basically called the UN Security Council useless and a waste of money. probably in hopes to not get prosecuted by the ICC. I don't think that's going to go well. But, everyone said, everyone's talked about, what about the IL-76s that were shot down in Ukraine? Well, we don't have anything really to verify those. We don't. They said that 4 were shot down. I never reported on it. It was too early in the war before we started. But I can report on this one, and that's because an IL-76 crashed here in the Ryazan Oblast. So we do not know the casualties at this point. There's some numbers getting thrown around, but none of them are too specific. But there was a video of the aircraft going down. This is coming from RT, which is a Russian state-run media organization. We can see here the fire burning out in the field just over the city. So let's take a look. Looking from the cockpit, I think it's safe to say no one survived that. They're claiming 4 dead right now here over on RT. I don't know. I've heard 3 dead and 2 wounded and all sorts of stuff. So, and this is what it's supposed to look like, by the way. Not what the tangled mess was that you saw scattered amongst the tree in the field. So that is the IL-76, and so that is a large transport aircraft for Russia. So losing one, I mean, that's a very expensive aircraft to lose, but obviously Russia is really suffering from probably a lot of maintenance issues as a result of the war and lack of parts and economic sanctions and not being able to produce new ones. But it could also have been pilot error. We just don't have any conclusive thing to say about this. It took off, it basically crashed immediately after takeoff, and it made a pretty sharp bank immediately after takeoff and put itself into a stall. Pretty similar to, if anyone's seen the picture of the B-52 that crashed, where it did a pretty high level maneuver and then immediately stalled and ended up crashing. That pretty much is what the video looked like, at least from a distance. There is no close-up footage at this point. Oh, Russia. So the OSCE officially released its report regarding its findings from February 24th through April 5th on its investigation into the Moscow mechanism regarding the human rights violations of war crimes within Ukraine. Damning evidence on both sides regarding humanitarian rights efforts, but a large majority are reportedly committed by Russia, at least according to the OSCE report. So what has the OSCE said from at least the Russian delegation side? Apparently the OSCE has neo-Nazis in it. God damn it. I'm sorry. I can't help but laugh because if anyone disagrees with Russia, they're neo-Nazis. That's it. They are neo-Nazis or just Nazis. Sometimes they just don't even call them neo. They just call them Nazis. Which isn't what Nazi is. This is not what Nazism is, by the way. Nazi is the German Social Workers' Party. For anyone that doesn't know, like that's what a Nazi is. That's what the party actually stands for. So anyway, this is officially from the Russian Federation delegation over to the OSCE and their statement on this. Today, neo-Nazism has raised its head in the OSCE space. The most egregious example were neo-Nazi detachments from among the Ukrainian armed forces using weapons supplied by NATO, because they don't call it NATO, they call it HATO. Countries continue to attack civilians. Well, first of all, it would really help to minimize civilian casualties if you didn't put your ammunition depots right next to apartment complexes. That helps usually. Or stadiums. Don't do that either. Where a lot of people tend to go. So maybe just stop putting them in like the largest city that is under Russian control. That helps. That helps significantly, believe it or not. Um, so that's and we've seen precision strikes. Now, am I saying that everything is precision strike? No. We've also seen BM-21 grads, hit Donetsk. Like, I'm not saying that Ukraine isn't committing war crimes. I mean, come on, guys, it's a war. War crimes happen. Okay, there's two different levels to this though. There are, human rights violations, right? Where it's war crimes that are committed by individuals, throughout a war, right? That's a human rights violation that they're committing these things and they're doing it. And then, at least according to the OSC, right, there's a good amount of evidence to support the claims, though they cannot confirm the claims, of crimes against humanity, which is the next step. Crimes against humanity include ethnic cleansing and genocide, which is what Ukraine is saying that Russia is committing against its people. Meanwhile, Russia is also saying that genocide is being committed against the people, or against Russian-speaking individuals in the Donbass, which is their whole reason for the war, because neo-Nazism. So they're two very different levels. Like I said, human rights violations are usually kind of one-off things, individuals or small groups of individuals conducting human rights violations against a population or against, non-combatants. That happens. You saw it in Iraq, in Afghanistan. You saw it in Somalia. You saw it, name a conflict, human rights violations everywhere. Which you don't see very often is crimes against humanity. And crimes against humanity is a huge leap in step because that means that it's systematic. To say it's systematic means that it is being done purposefully with the knowledge by its government and its authorization and encouragement of its government. With likely probably, and we've seen this from Russia, that they will purposely prevent the criminalization of the individuals perpetrating these. So when you're talking about rape on such a wide scale, summary execution, you're talking about pillaging, you're talking about erasing of a language, then that's, the changing of your education, forced sterilization, forced deportation. All of these things are what can you be attributed to a systematic way of doing this. And that's really what we see from Russia. That's the argument. I'm not an attorney in human rights law. Like, I'm not. I understand basic human rights law because I knew I needed to know, what was a war crime, what wasn't. So that way, when I was in the military, I wouldn't commit war crimes against people willingly or unwillingly. Or knowingly or unknowingly. And that's the issue, is there is at no point that I can look at what's being done in Ukraine on the part of Russia and say that it's not systematic. It's too widespread. There's a point in which something is just an egregious tragedy that many people died in. And you could call that World War One. A lot of people died in World War One. A lot of war crimes committed during World War One a lot of them before they were called war crimes, such as the use of chemical weapons. But, still under the Geneva Conventions, the genocide and ethnic cleansing, you really couldn't call World War I that unless you included the immediate aftermath of World War I, which the Armenian genocide occurred. But that World War I is just a tragedy. Like, it's just a tragedy and egregious loss of human life on a huge scale. Not so much when you're talking about Ukraine, because cities were just flattened. It wasn't a war crime. There weren't nearly as many protections against individuals. It was a very different thoughts to how war was conducted. Yes, I understand that. It's very different. They followed different Geneva Convention at that point. But looking at that and knowing it's wrong now, under the 14th Geneva Convention, knowing it's wrong, knowing that you can't do these things, knowing what you can and can't do, what weapons you can and cannot use, and especially when it comes to civilian populations. I mean, you can argue, the shelling within the Donbass since 2014 against two trench lines of Ukrainian and separatist forces in what has stalemated into trench warfare up until this point. You could even argue that when you're looking at places like Donetsk. So if I go back over here and we actually go over to Donetsk and we actually take a look, we're going to zoom in here real far, and this is the airport around Donetsk. And you can see pretty significant damage from shelling. And this obviously happened prior to the war because My Maps has not updated, since really the beginning of the war here. So pretty massive amount of damage. So I'm not going to deny shelling was occurring. What I can't say though is that it was on such a level as to be considered a crime against humanity and genocide. Because if you look further into the city, you get past the airport, and you're seeing pretty much. You're seeing light damage. You can see some there. You can see, some light damage in some of the houses on the outskirts. But as you push deeper and deeper into Donetsk, it's really not a whole lot of destruction. There's not really a whole lot of loss here. And that's not to say that it didn't occur, but the evidence shows very differently when you're looking at Kharkiv or Kiev or Bordyanka or Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, Severodonetsk, Mariupol, Kramatorsk, Slavyansk, Sumy, Chernihiv, any of these regions, Izium, just a massive difference in the level of destruction. So, but anyway, that's the OSC, at least the Russian delegation calling the OSC a bunch of Nazis. We jump up here, and I'm going to skip Belgium real quick, and we're going to jump over into the Glastonbury Festival. So Zelensky actually addressed the Glastonbury Festival. The Glastonbury Festival is held inside of the UK. It's over by Pilton, and it is a festival celebrating contemporary art and music. It's a huge music festival there. But just take a look. This is his speech to Glastonbury.
Greetings, Glastonbury. The festival resumes this year after a 2-year break. The pandemic has put on hold lives of millions of people around the world, but has not broken. We in Ukraine would also like to live the life as we used to and enjoy freedom and this wonderful summer. But we cannot do that because the most terrible has happened. Russia has stolen our peace. But we will not let Russia's war break us, and we will want to stop the war before it ruins people's lives in other countries of Europe, Africa, Asia, Latin America. They are all under threat now. That is why I turn to you for support. Glastonbury is the greatest concentration of freedom these days, and I ask you to share this feeling with everyone whose freedom is under attack. Spread the truth about Russia's war. Help Ukrainians who are forced to flee their homes because of the war. Find our United 24 charity platform and put pressure on all the politicians you know to help restore peace in Ukraine. Time is priceless, and every day is measured in human lives. The more people join us in defending freedom and truth, the sooner Russia's war against Ukraine will end. Prove that freedom always wins. Thank you. Slava Ukraini!
So obviously one of his rare addresses in English, but a very, very major address there and what he's talking about, and he's very right. The war is in lives on both sides. The war is in lives, is what is measured in. You're talking, hundreds of casualties a day on both sides of the conflict, sometimes, reaching upwards of 1,000 casualties a day, from our understanding. 50% losses, at least material-wise, on the side of Ukraine. Pretty significant losses against Russian forces, though we can't confirm that, because Russia isn't announcing its losses at this point in the war. A lot of pressure needed. And when he was talking about United 24 project, we do have that link in the description, and actually believe it's the top one for Ukraine, if I am not mistaken. So if you guys are wanting to check that out after watching that address, it is in the description. It is verified for us, so you guys can go check it out for you. And as we jump down here into Brussels, the Council of Europe's Human Rights Commissioner penned a letter to Turkey after Istanbul banned its Pride Parade. This comes as the country is actually cracking down on the LGBTQ plus community within the country. And she said, "Dear ministers, I have noticed with interest that on the 2nd of March 2021, Turkey launched an action plan on human rights, which stated that the human rights must be dominant in legislation and practice, and that the judicial process must be operated with this understanding at all stages. It also prescribes that no public duty may be performed by neglecting the human rights, violating human rights. More importantly, the action plan explicitly promotes the principle of equality and freedoms, peaceful assembly, expression, association. With this in mind, I would like to pursue dialogue and other protections of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Turkey, but bringing your attention to some concerns pertaining to human rights of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and intersex LGBTI people, upholding freedoms and peaceful assembly, association, and expression." So, that is the letter penned on the 17th of June 2021 regarding the action plan on human rights by Turkey. And this is from the official website. And Turkish authorities should stop stigmatism against the LGBTQIP community. And this is something that was reiterated and retweeted by the current Commissioner on Human Rights regarding this situation. And so she penned an additional letter, which I believe is here. Sorry, this is the original. But she continues, nonetheless. So I digress. But that is the current situation with them. They believe that the banning of the LGBTQ Pride Parade in Turkey, in Istanbul specifically, is kind of a violation of human rights. There's some other subjects regarding human rights today, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Ankara also has released a statement from its Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in which is regarding to the EU Parliament's decision on candidates in the European Union. We actually pulled that from their official Twitter as well. So this is their official statement, number 204 from the 24th of June 2022, aka today. The prejudice and myopic and erroneous stance on Turkey and the conclusions adopted by the European Council held in Brussels on the 23rd, 24th of June 2022 is regrettable. This is yet again a demonstration of the inability of the EU to break the vicious circle on matters related to Turkey. The EU's attempt to legitimize the maximalist claims that are against the international law regarding Eastern Mediterranean and Aegean Sea is unacceptable. Likewise, the EU's silence on the Greek actions violating international law, particularly on the Greek claim of 10 nautical mile national airspace, militarization of the islands, pushbacks, is utter oddity. Such statements do not contribute to the resolution of the issues and can cause harm to regional stability. Although Turkey maintains its stance on the side of international law and good neighborly relations, reciprocating to this with a strategy of deliberate tension and escalation is a prime example of insincerity. The EU must already comprehend that the benefits that would be brought about by Turkey's accession process and the cooperation between Turkey and the EU must not be taken hostage by and sacrificed to the narrow-minded, unlawful, and maximalist claims of Greece and Greek Cypriot administration. Essentially, the EU's general interests necessitate this. On the other hand, Turkey welcomed grading the status of EU candidate country to Ukraine and Moldova and recognized the European perspective of Georgia at the European Council. However, it is odd that accession negotiations with candidate countries Albania and North Macedonia have not been started yet. Turkey considers that granting the status of candidate country to Bosnia and Herzegovina as soon as possible will be for the benefit of the wider European geography, including the Balkans. Turkey is of the opinion the EU must sincerely engage with all candidate countries in the advance of the accession process based on merit. So, basically, they had a little bit of a problem regarding some stances that the EU is taking regarding Greece and the Aegean Sea, because keep in mind the Turkey just did state that Greece should remember what happened 100 years ago, which is the Armenian genocide and the burning of Smyrna, and immediately following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire when Turkey went to war with Greece. And the Aegean Sea is a hot point for these two countries right here. So this is the Aegean Sea for most that don't know. They are talking about several different islands located here in the Aegean, which they both lay claim to. And Turkey is very much not a very big fan of Greece, so they will go to war over this if they really wanted to. I think that international relationships now mean that they won't, but this is something that they would be perfectly okay with. And by the way, for any gamers out there who may be of interest to my little knowledge here, I am a big fan of the game Arma 3, and this island, Limnos, is actually the island in the Aegean Sea which the main map is based on. This is the exact map that you will find in the game. Same thing here. This is Altus in the game, and this is Stratus. And these are two actual islands in the Aegean Sea that you could go and visit if you so wished. Anyway, moving on from that little tangent, we can jump down here into Iraq, where we see that a rocket strike occurred on a UAE-financed gas field in Iraq, also known as the Khormor gas field in Soleimania province. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with pronunciation. Which operates in the U.S.-based Dana gas. Casualties and destruction were avoided at this point, but a day earlier, the facility had already been shelled. When the shell exploded, 2 people were injured. No one knows who is behind this attack at this point. There's a number of groups that could be, including the Islamic State, Katiba Hezbollah, the IRGC, the Peace Brigades, the Soldier Brigades, you name them. Sorry, the Soldier Army. So, but take a look at this. Short video, not a lot of destruction, but basically any facility that's worth anything in Iraq has air raid sirens. They have a detection system. The Baghdad Embassy has a system as well. Obviously, they get shelled rather frequently, believe it or not, and it's a sound that I can't get out of my head to this very day. So we jump over here into Afghanistan, though. We go down into the Khost province of Afghanistan, where emergency aid efforts are ongoing inside the country. And we actually got some of this from RT, believe it or not. But inside the Khost region, international community has really started receiving aid from, into this region. There was a devastating 6.1 Richter scale earthquake that actually hit this region, and between 700 and 1,500 people have been killed, and another 1,500 plus have been injured. There's an extensive damage here, and so we can go ahead and take a look. So for those that don't know, by the way, back up here. So this is still the International Red Cross. So their full name is the International Committee of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. The Red Crescent is the symbol used in really within the Middle East, where Islam is present, because they don't recognize a cross, they recognize the crescent. So it's the same organization, it's just there are two different symbols that can be used, the Red Crescent being one of them. So you'll see this if it's in the Middle East, it's the same thing. This symbol is the exact same for a medical vehicle or the International Committee of the Red Cross. It's just Middle Eastern instead of the Red Cross that you normally see in other countries within like Europe and the United States. Still protected completely under the Geneva Convention, though, so don't target it. So you jump over here into the United States. We have a couple of different announcements. The first one is actually coming from the U.S. Capitol building, and I think this one is probably the most interesting one of the day. So I didn't know this. I saw it on a couple of different things that got pointed out on the mainstream media and other sources that we have. And that is the fact that a U.S. bill was introduced by Representative Kinzinger to the House of Representatives back on June the 17th. It's called H.R. 8144 for the 17th Congress. And what this is, it's a bill to train Ukrainian pilots on the F-16 and the F-15 platforms. So this has been sent to committee at this point within the process. And it's been introduced to the House. So this is something that is being considered, at least on a government level. And so this continues their ability to, this means that it would up their capabilities. Basically, you train these pilots, you bring them to the United States or to places in Europe. You train them on these aircraft, which takes a long time. Once these pilots are trained, that would allow the United States to send F-15s, F-16s, as well as other NATO countries, their F-15s and F-16s, directly to Ukraine for them to fly. It's been heavily pointed out that, we can't just give them these fighter aircraft because, muscle memory is everything when it comes to flying these aircraft. And you don't want, during a dogfight, you don't want your MiG-29, pilot reaching for a knob on a MiG-29 that's not there in the F-16. And so it's a very different use, but this would mean that precision guided munitions from these aircraft, the optical pods on these aircraft that would allow them to use laser guided munitions that are produced by the United States, the aircraft themselves. I mean, this is all open, and this is from the official. This is officially from Congress. So this is their official tracker on this. This is the overview on this. There is not a whole lot to it yet. The text hasn't even been factored in yet. But we can go down here, and this is actually this is the official release regarding this, exactly from Kinzinger's official government website. You can take a look at this. So it's a bipartisan proposal regarding training, begin training Ukrainian pilots and aircrew members on the F-15s, F-16s, and other air platforms, while the administration continues to consider sending such equipment. So basically, he's going through and he's talking about, hey, we need to give them these aircraft, and we need to train their pilots to use these aircraft. We can take a look at this here. And here it is. Here's the bill. So if anyone has any interest in this, you can go over to this website in this PDF and go take a look. But I'm not going to read through the whole thing here. Not my forte, but pretty big proposal. That changes a lot of things if it's accepted. It allows the U.S. to train the pilots, train the air crews, give the aircraft, give the ordnance for them, give the supplies needed to run these aircraft. These aircraft, pretty insane. And so I just got a comment from Rooster Sideburns. He says, in World War II, how much training did new pilots get in the Battle of Britain? I actually don't know. Realistically, they didn't get a lot. But you also see that reflected in the casualties from the Battle of Britain. There is a ton of casualties from the aircrews during the Battle of Britain. Their losses were pretty substantial. Their aircrews, they lost a lot of their senior leadership at the outset during their very heavy fighter campaigns. But the Luftwaffe at that point, after the Battle of Britain, really wasn't capable of conducting major operations at that point. They were still very formidable as an air force, but the Luftwaffe suffered enough casualties due to the UK during the Battle of Britain that they weren't really capable of leaving the mainland. And it really established air supremacy for the United Kingdom and for the Allies over the English Channel, which is a really big deal when you're talking about that. That sets up the precursor for the Normandy landings. That sets up anti-ship, anti-mining ships and demining ships, mine layers, mine sweepers, assault craft, everything else. So pretty. But they did take substantial losses. I don't know off the top of my head. I don't have the casualties just memorized on that one, but I'm sure it's probably a quick Google and Wikipedia look up. But the other big news from the United States. So before we get into this, we are apolitical on this channel. Okay, so we will not say one way or the other which we believe in, and I want to make that very clear. We're going to tell it what we're going to report, what is being said, and who is saying it, and why. We are not going to pick a side on any politics. I want to make that very clear. But Roe versus Wade was just overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Roe versus Wade stood for nearly about 50 years at this point, and that is the federal protection on the legalization of abortions in the United States. Simultaneously, states throughout. So what this means is the overturning of this law does not mean that it is now legal nationwide to have an abortion. It does not. That is not what this means. What this means that it is now a state decision. So a state now gets to decide whether or not it is legal in that state to have an abortion or not. Simultaneously, while this has happened, because of this, states that are run by whoever would prefer to have that banned in their state, and was able to pass the laws to make it so, they have put those laws into effect, and they will be going into effect at different times, but most of them immediately. So there are different assets you can go and find if you are if you are in need of this kind of care. Then there are a lot of places to go find this. The president has called on Congress to act for this, to change the decision, to make an amendment is what it will take. It will take a constitutional amendment within Congress. And protesters are gathering nationwide. There are a lot of protesters there at the Supreme Court building. There are a lot of protesters everywhere right now. And I want to make it pretty clear to anyone who may have strong feelings on this. I do not support violence. So, I do not support violence in any way. So, do not, if you plan on participating in a protest or counter-protest because of this, do not participate in violence. I do not agree with it. I do not agree with violence. I don't believe in violent actions for any reason. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's constructive. I'd like to have constructive intellectual conversations on these issues to where we can compromise and have some middle ground. And I keep them very open and try to keep it a moderate tone to a lot of this. So, once again, this is a very controversial decision, and it brings a lot of emotion to a lot of people, of a lot of different age groups, of a lot of different political, ideologies. I am not going to support any of those. And this channel will not openly support any of those as a channel. Everyone is entitled to their personal opinion, and I will not, especially when it comes to the politics channel on our Discord, I will not absolve, I will not keep my staff from voicing their personal opinions as long as that is, stated. It's their personal opinion. But officially, I will not support any political thing on here, one way or the other. I just say it as it is. That is the news. That is how we will do any major political change in any country. So keep that in mind if that's kind of what you're looking for. I hope that you find that here. If it's not what you're looking for, I do not recommend this then for you. But this is the statement by the President of the United States in response to this. So let's take a look.
Many of us are frustrated and disillusioned that the court has taken something away that's so fundamental. I know so many women are now going to face incredibly difficult situations. I hear you. I support you. I stand with you. The consensus of the American people, core principles of equality, liberty, dignity, and the stability of the rule of law demand that Roe should not have been overturned. But this decision must not be the final word. My administration will use all of its appropriate lawful powers, but Congress must act. So many of us are.
So that is from the official presidential statement regarding this. There are many other statements that are being made by politicians globally, and also delegations. The United Nations and several of its departments made statements saying that this was a setback in human rights regarding the United States. The Canadian Parliament and several members of the Canadian Parliament similarly stated that it was a setback for human rights, and it was concerning to them. That is what other countries are saying at this point regarding this, and international organizations. That is what other political parties within the United States are saying. This is what there are pros, there are for and against on all sides on all of this. So that is what is being said regarding this issue. Once again, I'm not going to support one way or the other openly on this. It's just not how. This is not what we're here to do. So I apologize if that's really what you're interested in. This is really the big news that really kind of blurred everything out for the day, is this decision. And it's, we're not here to do politics. We're here to report the news. So, and do it in a way that is the most correct as possible and unbiased as possible. So, we'll do the same thing with elections when major elections occur. And we'll go from there, and we'll try to improve on it as we find things do and do not work, to stay apolitical on things. But this is what's going on in the United States, and a lot of people are affected by it one way or the other. A lot of people have their different opinions. I just ask if this conversation does occur, at least on our community Discord, that you do keep it intellectual, or don't get into fighting matches with each other, essentially. I don't want to see that anywhere. I want to see amicable conversations about it. And I recommend you do the same, elsewhere too. It's just, we're better off as human beings if we just are amicable with each other on these things and keep an open mind. And with that, that's actually all of the news within the United States and within the world, at least for the day. We're always looking for more organizations to support. There's a ton of organizations already listed in the description. Please go check those out. We want to help people globally. We want to help people all over the world. I would love to be able to help Afghanistan. I would love to be able to help Iraq. I want to be able to help South Africa, Somalia, Ethiopia. Every single place in the world currently ongoing through a crisis, I want to be able to help. Ukraine. I have a ton of different links down there for Ukraine. So please go check those out. Please continue to support these organizations. I really appreciate the support you've already given them. It's amazing. The community you guys have built here and allowed us to be the news that gives back is amazing. So I really want to continue. That's the whole point of the project. Once again, we're never doing super chats. We're never pushing merch or anything. We're just going to be doing fundraisers when we get large enough to monetize and be able to have fundraisers on this stream. Straight fundraisers every single stream, every single day we're live, constantly, without failure. That is what's going to happen. We're going to help people, and I will do it from now until I physically can no longer do this anymore, which is going to be a very long time. I will be probably an old man and retired by the time that stops. So please, if you can't give a lot to these organizations, give a little. And if you can't give anything at all, give us a like, subscribe, tell your friends about us. If you like how we do things here, if you like if you like how we take a standpoint on how we do the news here, especially with some of these more controversial topics, I really hope that you will continue to support us with that, and that you do end up, letting other people know about how we're trying to do things. So I hope that you guys are enjoying, that you guys continue to enjoy. I really thank you for the support. Please thank the staff. They're the ones that put this together. I am just the one that lends the voice here. So just, keep giving them your support as well. Not just me. Once again, they really make the magic happen. So thank you for joining us tonight. I hope that you remain safe, that your family and your friends remain safe. I hope that you guys get to enjoy a wonderful Saturday. I hope it's a little bit cooler for you, especially if you're going through the heat waves here in the U.S. I hope it's a little bit of a cooler weekend. It's supposed to be in a lot of places. So I hope you get to go out and about and enjoy the outdoors. I highly recommend getting outside and kind of enjoying yourself, kind of taking some time away from everything else kind of going on in the world, and doing something that you enjoy, a passion, whether that's art, music, playing games, or streaming, or whatever else you do that you find enjoyable, spending time with loved ones, going hiking, getting out and about. So highly recommend it. It's great for your mental health. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. My name is Paul from the New News, and have a wonderful night and a wonderful Saturday. Bye now.